Hey everyone, I'm Nido King, and last time on Warrior Within, we got an awesome new sword, a horribly crappy new sand power, and we came a long way. Seriously, you would not believe how far we came since the beginning of that episode. Check this out. We're right back where we got the Scorpion Sword, except now there's a golem here. A golem with his own health bar. Like a boss. Fortunately, I've dealt with plenty of these guys in my time. I know a thing or two about fighting them. Not really a whole lot of special stuff about this guy, but he does have one or two new tricks up his sleeve. If you noticed, his health meter recovered quite a bit when he threw me. So you really don't want to get thrown. Other than that, this is just the same golem that you've been fighting the whole time. Try and maybe do a little more damage this time before I get thrown. I think even if he does throw you, you usually dodged in completely the wrong direction. And at this point, my game is over. I just haven't noticed it yet. The thing I didn't see at the time, and honestly didn't even realize was going on until I reviewed the video in post, the door that the golem came out of has closed. He's just thrown me up against it. So I think I made a lot of negative progress there, but I'm still good. It's not usually worth rewinding fighting this guy, especially if you're down a couple sand tanks like I am. There are some very important uses for it coming up. I'd say use it in dire straits, and otherwise don't. Gonna get my dodging skills in practice here. There we go. No, get out of the way. Don't let the wall obstruct my vision, please. That's how it's done. And down comes the ladder, inside the room that the golem came from. And there's the trophy I was talking about before. It turns out it's actually just riding the golem for 30 seconds without getting thrown. So, you can do it on any golem as long as you're not attacking him while you're on his back. Of course, at this point, I was trying to figure out where that ladder was. Naturally, because it's inside a closed room, I never found it. So I'll spare you the 7.5 minutes or so of searching for it, and just go back to when I decided to reload my save and attempt to fight the golem without getting locked out of his room. You might notice I'm going to do most of my fighting in the room, just in case the door does decide to close. It won't be between me and the ladder. It's surprisingly hard to dodge at double speed. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I obviously put this effect in post. Not a particularly interesting fight, but I love watching the prince whack at this guy in fast motion. Getting a little far away from the door for my comfort, of course. So I'll take him almost all the way down, and then kind of get thrown on purpose. Just so that I can lead him back into the room. I never knew he could bull charge like that. Nor have I ever been flung quite that far by one of his fists. I learned a lot about him in this fight in the effort to make sure that I killed him in this room. And I didn't actually get any sand. But yeah, what I think happened before was that I got thrown across a loading screen boundary. And when the area was reloaded on me, it was loaded with the door closed. Since there was no scripted event to open it, I was just trapped in the room. And now I'm in that same room, but in the upper part, and I got a bunch of these guys to fight. Yeah, it's kind of a waste of time.
You should be honored to die by my...
Die by my... Ugh! One of my favorite Prince lines, of course. Try and take these guys out the fast way. And in fact, about the only really reliable way.
I can smell your fear from here.
Yeah, I know I said strangulation is boring, but I think it's even faster on these guys than trying to fight them legitimately. That was much faster than any of the fights in the last video. So there's an obvious exit from here for once, but there's also a not-so-obvious exit, which leads to a closed door. Somewhere around here there's going to be another cracked wall, and of course, I'm good at running right past the obvious. I don't even have to pretend there may be enough time to do this without the Eye of the Storm. I know this one's pretty tough to make even with it. See, it closes immediately when the effect runs out. Then we got a trap-filled corridor, and I don't really have a whole lot of health, but I've never had too much of a problem with these. Yeah, that's what happens when you mistime your run, but are determined to make it without going back. I've got plenty of sand if I need to rewind. I think the key there is to make sure you're running when the blades are coming across the hallway. Don't try to run between horizontal blades. Just roll under them. And surprisingly, that's it. I don't think these trap-filled corridors are getting much harder at this point. Although if you had less health than I did, they'd be a real challenge.
That's the way I played the game the first time.
Life upgrade number 7. This is why I didn't have full life when I fought what I was pretending was the final boss, but I'm sure everybody knew the Empress wasn't going to be the final boss. I didn't spoil anyone for that, did I? No, certainly not at this point, anyway. And just zigzag my way through corridors that pretty much all look the same and all look like ways you could go until you smack your face into a wall. Here's an interesting room, by which I mean there's nothing in it of any interest. So I gotta climb up. And this is actually kind of fun. Jumping from beam to beam, and beam to beam, more beams. I don't think there were this many beams in Willy Beamish. Now, of course, I gotta go up. It's always up with this game. I gotta get to that beam up there, but if I walk all the way to the wall, I can't do a wall jump from it, so I just gotta take a couple steps back and wall jump from here. Yeah, I'm getting better at not missing the really obvious. Hey, a couple of normal enemies. The Scorpion Sword is great when you're not fighting enemies that block everything you do with it.
Kailina's library. What knowledge must be contained within? I suspect there is much she could have taught me. things gone another way.
Yeah, that's right. The prince is now the emo Hermione Granger.
You should never have come to our island.
And we get to fight more of these guys. Lots more of them. Well, it thinned their numbers a little bit. And again, I keep letting myself get caught off guard because I'm so used to being able to block.
Your time would be better spent seeking sanctuary.
Now there's just one left. I don't have a secondary weapon. Yeah, I'll try and make it a bit more fun this time. Alright, that's boring. Let's try another tactic. Alright, well, it kind of worked. A bit more interesting than just strangling him to death. Cost me a bit of health, though. I'm gonna regret that. And more walls I can't run up, but I'm pretty sure I can run up the one on the other side. Meanwhile, more random fighting techniques. And a random reversal because somebody called me in the middle of this thing, and of course it was just GameStop telling me that Final Fantasy XIII 2 was going to be in stock soon, which I already knew. Didn't really care. And I figured that maybe I could stealthily slip a rewind in there and use that to mask and edit. Turns out I didn't really need it. But go in a sand tank and here it comes again. Very rarely see a counter miss. That's kind of strange. But anyway, that door to the left is the next destination, and there's a bookcase in our way. There was a similar lever to this one on the other side, but all it does is close a bookcase, and the one that it would have opened was already propped open by a table, which I climbed over on the way into the library. So it's a kind of weird setup that doesn't really have a whole lot of purpose, but at least it's something to do. I don't mind when these guys just turn their backs on me for a while. Don't like it when they run up to me while I'm in the middle of a move that completely flopped. Hey, that's 2 charged attacks in a row that worked. I think. I'm losing track of what things worked and what things didn't. So we got an obvious lever over here. That opens the door forward. But it's a long way to that door. And of course, there's a bookcase in the way. Now, I remember this puzzle being a lot harder than it was for me this time around. At least back in the PS2 version. It seemed like I barely had enough time using the Eye of the Storm twice. Because you gotta use it, you gotta pull the lever, during which your power runs out, and you can't reactivate it until you're done moving the lever. In this case, it looks like I made it with plenty of time, as I'm trying to recover sand, which probably doesn't work while the eye is still going, and the door is still just slowly closing behind me. But that's alright, it's not like sand isn't any shortage at this point. Got halfway through throwing her, ended up trying to strangle her, and that just isn't going to work when there's another one standing right there. So I'm just going to kind of randomly flail around for a while. It's pretty much exactly the way I play Skyward Sword. And gotta go with the old classics sometimes. A lot of fighting in the library. Not of a whole lot of interest, but things are about to get better, I'm sure. Gonna run across these balconies, and of course more enemies drop down. And for once, I'm just gonna ignore them. If I keep moving and get to a higher ground, they can't do anything to me. Instead, I run into a bunch of these guys. So now there's tons and tons of enemies to fight. And I attempt to activate Ravages of Time, but I wasn't blocking at the time because I was standing on top of a kunoichi and shoved up against the wall. So I just slowed down time for a little bit and don't accomplish much. Take a ton of damage. And again, because I was just being knocked to the ground, I wasn't blocking, and another Eye of the Storm. This is terrible. Just completely awful. And in desperate straits, I'm going to go ahead and use up most of the sand I've got left. Alright, that worked well. Except for the part where I died. Having no sand left is not a good position to be in, but fortunately they're all almost dead. And there are things that I can do about that. And that's what happens if an enemy is too weak even to be strangled. Just steal their weapon in one go. Why don't I do that more often? That was fun. I liked it. Anyway, we obviously need to use these bookcases to climb even higher. I don't know where the heck the prince was after defeating the Empress, because we never see him go there. But it was obviously way, way down in the bowels of the castle or something. Alright, that beam up there is way too high to jump straight to, so it's gotta be a wall jump. This is absolutely ridiculous. But it works. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of video game characters that can leap twice their own height or so. But those are characters like Mario and Sonic. Not characters that are meant to be realistically proportioned. So this door has seen better days. And you jump straight up, you drop straight down, you die. What sense does that make? The worst part of it is, you can't even get by under the door. It leads nowhere, it's just a dead end. So another sand tank wasted just to find that out. I'm not really sure I like this part of the game very much. At least not at this point. There's something that may justify it coming up a bit later. Otherwise, lots and lots of fatal falls that are just that tiny bit far enough that you can't survive them. That's going to be the way to progress. I gotta cross the library that way. So just come back in here, make sure I didn't miss anything. I didn't miss anything. That's just a giant, impassable pile of rubble. Whatever may have been on the other side, we'll never know. Now I just walk around these interesting formations and deal with more of these kunoichi on narrow beams. Problem is, I've actually got to turn the corner before I can attack, which takes some timing and gotta actually jump. There we go. And now I just gotta jump to the other one so I can get to that ledge by the door that we were shown in the earlier cutscene. Not that the cutscene's a bunch of help, because you couldn't really tell one part of the library from another at that point. Especially with these symmetrical formations like this one over here. Looks exactly the same as the one on the other side if it hadn't been destroyed. This one, I need to climb across the bottom of. And this was a secret that I really didn't want to miss, because I'm pretty sure you can't come back for it. Even though I believe you do return to this place later, you can't get to this secret at that time. I could be wrong about that, though. So let's see what's behind that mysterious panel in the library. More of these spiky logs that you can't possibly avoid except by wall running past them. Which trivializes most of the traps, although I almost got a face full of blades there. Of course, I'm one hit from death, and I've only got one sand tank to rewind with. Fortunately, I'm awesome. And also it was a really short, really easy corridor. You're probably getting tired of seeing that, but there's only one more left after this. And you can see I've got almost twice as much health as I started the game with. It still goes way too fast. But at least I'm on normal difficulty, so even someone with my pathetic gaming skills can survive. I keep trying to go through that solid panel. It doesn't work that way. Gotta climb back up the wall. Very nearly fall to my death. Actually, that might be a survivable fall. I don't suspect it is, but it's not really that far to the ground. Not usually looking to put that kind of thing to the test, though. Alright, back on the path I was originally supposed to be on. I think you might be able to jump across this thing, but again, I got one sand tank left. I'm just going to take the long way around. Very carefully deal with one more of you. And once again, take a look at this room that I jumped over just to make sure I'm not missing anything. It's the entrance to the library. I'm now just one floor above it. And the lamps in this corridor do some weird things. Really weird things. Then you get a box pushing puzzle. I probably could have pushed this closer to the exit and jumped up onto one of those beams. But whatever works. Anywhere there's a beam. And as I leave the screen, the fire just kinda dangles where it was.
Versions are costing me time. Best I hurry to the throne room and the mask.
I don't know how he knows the mask is in the throne room. But we're gonna get there next time. Hopefully without me having to rewind more than once.